Welcome to episode 21 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men the Animated Series weekly recap podcast. I'm Rod. You can check me out on all the usual social medias. It's either Rod Kim or Rod Kim Rocks. You'll find me.
And I'm JC, aka The John Carl on all social media, as well as one half of the founding fathers of Whiskey and Waffles. And today we are joined by...
Well, hello. I am the Thomas Jefferson of the Whiskey and Waffles crew, WallE, to be found on social media platforms under the very original name JWWALLE. And if you can't find me there, then that means I don't care about TikTok.
I mean, I don't care about TikTok, but we now say it in every introduction, so Rod has to keep posting on it until those episodes air. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series where we are going back and watching every single episode of the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series in their original intended script order, building up to the release of X-Men 97, which is coming to Disney Plus in 2023, supposedly.
So some quick reminders. We're a recap show about a series that came out over 28 years ago. There will be some spoilers. If you don't want it spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. We'll do our best to avoid mentioning anything about future episodes we haven't covered yet. Also, at the time of recording, we've all seen Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness. You'll hear this over a month from when it came out, so hopefully it's not a spoiler for you, but if we run into any of that stuff, we'll give a little warning before we jump into anything potentially spoilery about Doctor Strange in case you waited a month to watch the movie. Also, we're not currently sponsored or affiliated with Disney or Disney Plus in any way, and I feel like at this point actively working on not.
I think we say enough stuff that it's never going to happen. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops CIWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, just for Rod, Twitter, and Facebook. And make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast service. Finally, we record these in batches and obviously not in real time, considering when we just told you we all watched Doctor Strange. But if we're reacting to any news about the upcoming series, we are definitely a few weeks behind. Before we get into it, WallE, do you want to share anything about yourself as to why you wanted to be on this episode, or do you want to let it come out as we're going through the moments?
Well, let's get into it when we get into it, but just in general, I'd like to talk about what X-Men the Animated Series maybe meant to me as a little bit of intro context. You know, like a lot of kids our age, this was my first, not introduction to the X-Men, but introduction to the depth of the storytelling of what the X-Men had to offer. And, you know, as a child, like, this show was my big thing. This and Batman the Animated Series and Power Rangers were my can't miss stuff. And this set of episodes specifically represented a milestone moment for me as a human being who enjoys artistic expression. So I could not wait to talk about this with you guys today.
That's so cool. Not to say that these are bad episodes, but I think it's like unique because usually people point out things like Phoenix Saga and stuff as like highlights, you know, for the series for them.
Yeah, for me, it's Reunion Part 2.
Just part 2.
Just Part 2.
Actually hates part 1.
Yeah, Part 1 is a very slow slog to get to where we need to get to.
Not going to be talking for the first half of this. Oh, the White Claws come out.
White Claws out.
What are you drinking?
Oh, this is Woodford Reserve and La Croix Pure.
Oh, hey, Woodford Reserve is my go-to as well. I don't drink usually during these because I can barely keep a memory of 2 hours, and then there's also technology in front of me.
And he has to drive, and I don't.
Yeah, I'm a guest on one episode of this show, so I'm going all out.
Yeah. I mean, I went ham last time I had a mango White Claw. So.
Ooh. Yeah, so if I haven't talked for 5 minutes, assume that's because I've left the recording studio to go into the green room and get another Woodford Reserve La Croix Pure.
Meaning he has gone from the living room to the kitchen, which is about, it's a whole 15 feet.
Yeah, and there's not even a wall.
Nope.
I mean, in your heart there is.
I have yelled from the refrigerator before during the podcast.
Anyways, now on to the show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episodes 12 and 13, titled Reunion. They aired on February 12th and 19th, 1994, and respectively sit at a 7.8 and 8.0 star rating on IMDb. How did the score lower than Mojo Vision?
People fucking love Mojo Vision. So, WallE, you were not on the last episode with us. That was an 8.4 on IMDb. Thoughts?
Reunion or Mojo Vision?
Mojo Vision.
Oh, listen. Anything that features Spiral in any way, shape, or form immediately gets like 7.7.
You know, I didn't think about the sex appeal factor. Maybe that's what gave the extra 0.4 points.
So many arms.
All these things are true.
We luckily have a character in this episode with multiple arms too.
There you go.
Different style, Definitely multiple arms.
Very different style.
So for several episodes now, it was at the beginning of season 2, I guess, that we've seen like little peeks into the Savage Land with Professor Xavier and Magneto.
Yeah, since after it was after the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this entire season, we had 1 or 2 episodes where they didn't put the interstitial, but this was the way for the Leewalds and the rest of the writing team to be able to have storyline that extended throughout the entire season, because they had been given the edict by the Fox executives that they didn't want a long story similar to what we got season 1 with Night of the Sentinels all the way till Master Mold, showing he's smarter than racist people.
Becoming Wi-Fi.
What's really cool about the way that they did this in season 2, it basically almost created a situation in an animated series similar to in comics where you'd have backup stories, where you have your main thrust of the issue or episode, but you had something else, kind of tied to the end of it. And the build up to what you were able to do by doing it that way instead of just a sort of a linear serialized story provided, I think, a little bit of an extra weight to when you actually got to this finale. Like, I just remember real time feeling the sense of, we're finally gonna get resolution to this. Like, it's all about this now, as opposed to something where if it weaved in more dramatically, you wouldn't have that immediate sense of like, oh, now it's on, the way that this was sort of set up. So I really loved this structure. Even as a kid, I probably couldn't put it into words back then, but I think that was a unique, and I still very much remember the little interstitials, throughout. Like, I don't remember specifics about most of the episodes, but I still very much remember all of the little details of, the moment Xavier realized he could walk, in the moment where they stopped being antagonistic for a little bit and started to actually be the friends that they've always said they were. And you got to see that for real in this. It was exciting.
I remembered to this day, until we did our rewatch of it, Xavier or Magneto throwing the rock at the T-Rex. That was still one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing to some excellent rock throwing Professor X is
Everybody
about
fucking loves rock throwing.
And WallE, it's funny you said that you thought like we finally got here, because that was literally my first note. It's like, are we finally at the Savage Land for like an actual episode? And I love it. It sets up. They do a good job of setting up the tone of like where we are, because my note here is, are we starting off with a ferret getting run off by a T-Rex? Cool. Love dinosaurs. Anyway, Magneto and Xavier are climbing up the side of a cliff.
Yeah, I can verify he actually wrote that down. Yep.
They're climbing directly up a cliff, which great upper body strength, because it's a full like 9 degrees perpendicular up. And they get attacked by 3 Skyriders. I didn't know that before they said, look, Skyriders.
They had not called them Skyriders previously. You didn't miss that. Don't worry.
But basically, these are people on pterodactyls.
Yeah, they're local warriors who have jumped ship, and they're working with the mutates at this point, apparently. And yeah, they're using pterodons as their transport.
And Professor X is fighting back. He throws a rock and literally kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Because 2 of them get knocked out. I don't know if that was like...
You can't say literally kills 2 with 1 stone when it is a figure of speech and they didn't die.
They didn't? I mean, I just assume they died.
Also, not birds, Skyriders.
Yeah. The pterodons as well as the riders, not just the...
So
you could say...
Not the history birds.
You could say that Professor X knocked out 2 Skyriders with 1 mini boulder.
Man, this is feeling like a Comic-Con interrogation now. Are we on a panel?
I told you this is what this episode was going to be. I warned you.
And then the Magneto like face kicks the 3rd one, gets rid of them. They climb up the side of the cliff and they make it back to the ship where it's snowy, because we're in this like weird area where like one side of the cliff is...
Well, it's the edge of the Savage Land where you have the line of, here's where paradise starts, and dinosaurs.
It's a cool like little fantasy moment, because you go from like tropical like Amazon rainforest thing to just like snow. And 3 of the mutates that we met earlier confront them, including 1 new one.
And Rod, playing our favorite game of all time, who are those characters?
So as promised, John accidentally told me who it was before we were recording, and I said I'd forget, and I genuinely forgot. Wolfman? I don't know.
Well, first off, we see Vertigo, we see Amphibious, we see Barbarous, and then the other one is named Lupo, which, WallE, did you know that character? Because I can't, to this day, think of seeing Lupo in anything other than these episodes of the animated series.
No, I honestly, if I was put into Rod's shoes right now, I would have guessed Professor Von dog Facenstein. It's literally not a character that has any memory whatsoever. I assume it's from a comic book somewhere because everything else is.
Right.
Well, not everything we found out.
Yeah, we keep referencing the guy from the intro, the little green dude, who's not in anything other than this series.
He's on Magneto's side in the run-up.
Like next to Thunderbird.
Yeah, okay. I know exactly what you're talking about because I went through this phase of my own life when I was a teenager being like, who is this?
He also makes a cameo in the Slave Island episode, but that's it.
Listen, that's lore building. That's what this show is all about. It's not just the comics. It's those little touches that they can bring to it.
So they all get in a fight, and it ends up in them getting restrained. Vertigo gives them all vertigo, but somehow they can kind of inexplicably walk. I don't know how Vertigo's powers work. I guess it like kind of cripples them enough to not be able to like attack.
It probably hurts.
Yeah, but they were taken prisoner.
Now they will live as slaves and perish as dogs. And it's like,
course.
damn, they really, really hate Magneto.
It was, they'll either live as slaves or perish as the dogs they are. And that emphasis was it was a slight zoom into Amphibius's face as he said it. And I only noticed that because it got grainier and it was definitely a post decision.
Yeah, that was not animated to be that way.
Into this.
They like physically took the camera, take themselves. Like,
The best way you could describe it is if this was a live action show and this was the actor playing Amphibius wanting to stand out and have more screen time.
Yeah.
It was overly dramatic.
He did it.
We're talking about it. Very Moira Rose.
Then we cut over to the Blackbird. Cyclops, Jean, Wolverine are listening to a cassette tape message from Morph where he's telling them to go to the Branson Theater. They arrive there. The banner says that Xavier Murphy is performing as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I get the Xavier reference. I guess Murphy is supposed to be Morph. Is like
I mean, that's as best a guess as I was going to have.
Yeah,
I don't know of a Murphy in X-Men lore, so
it wasn't Don Murphy the production partner for Jerry Bruckheimer on all those early 90s action movies? Maybe that's what it is.
That was a walk.
We were around the block and back. So they go inside the theater, which is kind of more like a tent. They're like almost like at a circus kind of thing.
Yeah, it was very carnival-esque. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so traveling circus with its traveling roadshow of freaks, so to speak.
And there's an actor on stage that's doing a scene from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The X-Men recognize it's Morph because of his voice, and so do most of the audience. I feel like.
You mean the TV audience, not the people in the tent with them?
The TV audience, sorry. The actual audience, they applaud, but for the most part, they almost don't exist. That's kind of why I forgot them.
I think it's really funny that there is an audience that is seeing this happen to them in person, and like we have to take that leap of these are just country bumpkins who think this is a practical effect, because this is the same area that it feels like would be the people that would be the most anti-mutant stance possible.
Oh, this is the prime recruiting ground for the Friends of Humanity. 100%. The vibe that I get from watching that is they think this is like wizardry of a normal kind. If they thought for an instance this was absolutely a mutant, there'd be pitchforks and those torch things that Indiana Jones would have in a temple. Torches.
We're all learning today.
Yeah.
I don't feel alone today.
But with that practical effect, I did appreciate that version of Hyde also looks like the Avengers style villain, which is literally called Hyde, whose real name I think is Calvin Zabo or something like that, WallE. I mean, if I'm not even going to look at Rod.
I will say I definitely recognized it as Marvel's Hyde. Like it was a point.
We've seen it in one of the card sets. Yes.
It was actually like turning into somebody he may have seen in the universe.
It felt very like deep cut thing for the fans. For me, the whole thing, I just was having anxiety over thinking about the reality of if a human being can turn into giant hulking Hyde. What is the wardrobe budget for this small thing? Because he just walks off in the broken thing. And yes, I know Morph did it himself. It's his thing, but no one else knows that.
Yeah.
Like if you're just, Jimmy Bob Joe, who's excited about watching this, that's a real thing that he might have to, consider. And maybe that's why he's so excited about it, because of how much production value was in this show.
He has a really efficient production budget, which is why they'll never cancel his show.
There you go. and it keeps confusing the locals. So he finishes that scene, which I guess was the finale of the one-man show.
It was a one-man show that was about 4 seconds long, but yeah.
And he walks backstage. The X-Men follow Morph, but then we reveal that Sinister is following the X-Men, and the poltergeist in your fridge.
No, that's called an ice maker.
I mean, I don't have fancy tech like that.
Its name is Bobby Drake. Okay, keep going.
The X-Men tell Morph that they're there to like rescue him and stuff. Morph is clearly trying to tell him like this is not a safe space and warning them it's a trap. It's too late.
He's essentially doing the play dumb act where he's like letting him know, I know who you are, but I can't acknowledge it because you're gonna get attacked.
Yeah, and he's watching, and also they already have Professor Xavier, and Sinister's henchmen didn't immediately restrain Wolverine.
Yep. My favorite named nasty boy, Gorgeous George.
Yeah. Who's with what, Hairball? Hairball? Hairball. Hairbag. That's another one.
Or is it Furbag?
Furbag.
No, it's Hairbag.
Hairbag. We took a journey on that one too. Oh, are you looking it up?
I'm looking up notes from the previous episodes.
We were always saying it was funny that on the same team, like who got the raw end of the stick is a guy named Hairbag, who's on the same team as Gorgeous George.
It's Hairbag.
Hairbag, there you go. And we cut back to the Savage Land. ka-zar is with his saber-toothed tiger Zabu.
They are following the mutates with Xavier and Magneto.
And then they veer off a little bit to find some. I thought they were Triceratops. They call them three horns, something like that.
Those are Triceratops. ka-zar did not go to high school like biology class or have a little picture book with names when he was a child.
The thing for me is like, Triceratops, that's a scientific name. That's what we have for it. Three horns, it's a simplistic name or whatever. I'm just kind of getting over the fact that this caveman in the Savage Land has the word three.
And English.
And, that to me is the it makes sense, but I'm like, how do you know of three? I don't feel like there are any abacuses here.
I kind of want the inside like of Zabu's head where he's processing all the information and stuff. He's actually the Professor Xavier of that world.
Oh, 100%. Zabu is...
He's too quiet not to be that smart.
The most intelligent creature in the Savage Land.
Based on everything that happened in this episode, I would believe that.
Yeah.
So that causes a stampede to start.
They instigate a stampede to cause a distraction so that ka-zar can help Xavier and Magneto escape.
He's not necessarily trying to help them escape because immediately when the attack happens and he separates them, he goes at Magneto.
Yeah. And he yells at Xavier. He's like, I don't know who you are, but why did you bring the devil back here?
The devil Magneto who enslaved my people.
And created mutates, which they've mentioned before, but now we're actually hearing it from one of the
locals.
And then he reveals that Shanna is his wife,
who in the comics known as Shanna the She-Devil.
Oh, okay. Oh, so he's married to the devil?
Different devil.
Okay.
That does change the context. Is this another of Magneto's many children?
No,
Shanna is...
I think that's the 70s style of it wasn't just Shang-Chi, it was Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu, and everybody had the subtitle to their name.
That's true.
Oh yeah, Magneto, the master of magnetism.
Luke Cage, Power Man.
So we put together that Shanna was the woman that was captured in the previous episode, Stinger, by Sauron, because he says that my wife was captured by Sauron. So unless he's talking about somebody else we didn't see, then that's who she was.
Xavier puts it together as well.
So they put together a plan to free ka-zar's people. Then we cut back to Sinister. Cyclops and Jean get caught. Cyclops just goes berserk again. He starts taking everyone down, and once he singles out Sinister, he goes ham on him like he did in the previous episode. He's the only one that can really hurt him.
Yeah, there's something with his optic blast that just does more damage to Sinister than seemingly anything else.
Yeah.
Which feels like is maybe even part of, or at least that's how I always took it, as part of why Scott was of the two that he needed to have to help create. Like Jean, you kind of follow the very powerful telepath. You get all the Phoenix stuff in there, the potential power in that DNA. But Scott doesn't have anything other than just, I'm an action figure, good guy hero.
And yells at everybody.
Yeah.
He loves yelling at people.
And having the physical attacks on Sinister being the most effective with Scott's optic blast is a really nice way to express that the power is at a higher level. Like you get Wolverine literally slicing, pieces out of him, and it's just instantly healed up.
Yeah.
But Scott being able to do his thing, and then obviously in the resolution of this episode and how he's able to, the two of them able to take care of that threat, really just underlines a thing that in the comics you can say, because of 30 years of history leading up to Sinister and why he would want this bloodline as like this master best utopian mutant connection. But in the comic or the show, you don't get the time to do that. So I love how they were able to show that because otherwise it's just a force blast. It's not even like heated. It's just a push. And the fact that has that level of impact underlines that sort of story importance.
Yeah. It turns him to goo. Like it literally is blasting through his body.
Yeah.
So,
and he's like actually grimacing at it and like he's in pain. Like other ones, he's just kind of like, oh, oops.
Then your favorite character, Ruckus, stops everything by screaming again.
Yeah, and Wolverine escapes out of all that screaming stuff. We were just talking about this, how there's like a lot of like a back and forth fight. It's kind of inconsequential. It's a cool little fight, but a lot of just they almost get caught, they don't.
Yeah, and then we have another moment where Morph uses his ability to transform. He swaps into Jean, and that gives enough of a moment for a distraction, which is where Sinister, the Nasty Boys, and taking Jean as their hostage, they're able to get them out of there.
It's more like because he turns into Jean, like knocks Wolverine out.
Had that really good one-liner where Wolverine going to save Jean Grey said, "You grabbed the wrong girl, bum." Yeah. And Morph cackles like, "Nope," and turns back into Morph, and it's just like, that was good.
That was a good
I
one.
like that
Yeah.
one. That made me happy.
Just probably clarify, at this point, Sinister is kind of like taking control of Morph's mind, so that's why he's not on the X-Men side in this particular fight, because that also goes back and forth.
A physical thing inside him, not like the Vertigo or the Sauron kind of mind control stuff that also happens in this episode.
Physical
implant that shines brightly from underneath his skin when it's activated.
I mean, that's how I control people. I want the other people around to see the little like buzzing light to know I'm controlling them.
What's in this drink?
Don't ask, just keep drinking. Okay. That'll get taken out of context.
Cyclops, they won't clip that one out for Instagram.
So Disney, we are a available to be sponsored podcast only on season 2.
Cyclops.
Cyclops, yeah.
You're not allowed to take that out in the edit.
Cyclops starts blasting the sky just kind of randomly. He's still berserking. He hits the ship a little, but not enough. It gets away.
It's a lot of like not continuous blast. It's just like kind of like almost like lasers. It felt weird. It didn't look or feel like the normal Cyclops.
I feel like Cyclops should just keep his eyes open and just start waving his head wildly because he's bound to hit something.
That is the mechanics of his powers, and B, what he does in the comics sometimes. Like one of the most iconic images of Cyclops is like holding down. I'm doing a physical thing on an audio podcast.
We do it all the time. Don't worry.
And looking up in the sky, and it's just an endless beam. There's a moment, I don't remember if it's this exact scene or somewhere else, but in these 2 episodes where I think it might have even been the scene because he wasn't in costume. His glasses were off, and he was doing the beams, but it was that weird scatter beam, and you see like the eyes, like not like eyeballs, like black like spots where it should be going. But I'm like, that's not how these powers work. It's an endless stream. It should keep going.
For what this put this weird, maybe because I'm old, but just put this weird thought in my head. If the DC movie makers decided to make like the X-Men movie,
no, stop! Don't even manifest that.
I'm
gonna hit you. Keep going.
They would do like the dark and gritty X-Men, and so like instead of actually seeing the cool X-Men story that's fun that we want to see, we'd actually see a whole movie about people filing class action lawsuits against Cyclops for downed planes and killed birds and stuff.
I want to see the damage control movie that covers that. To be totally honest,
the scope of the powers of the X-Men. Storm. She's stopping Apocalypse from taking over the world, creates a tornado to come knock out 10 of his henchmen. Also, that tornado then goes that way and knocks over 10 houses and has $10 million of property damage.
So, WallE, to your point, there is an earlier episode. It's the Juggernaut episode in the first season. She literally picked up a building, a full building, and dropped it on the Juggernaut. The insurance is not covering that.
I'm just saying, I understand why the government is a little skeptical of humans.
And then there was the episode about the mutant virus, the technovirus, where Storm is rescuing Jubilee, and they could have run out the doors of the mall that they were in, but she breaks a skylight to escape instead of just walking out the door.
Also, just anytime Storm, like, lightly uses powers, there's lightning.
Yeah.
Lightning strikes things. It is terribly destructive. It could have knocked out power during surgery. It could have killed a little bug. That bug didn't do anything.
I was waiting to see where you were going to go because you were not intending on saying bug there, and you made that call on the fly.
Because I feel like if it killed a person, we would have seen it. Like, these are pretty decent.
I don't know anymore.
No, dude. So there's some of the earlier episodes where Magneto attacks the power plant. People definitely suffocated from poison gas, and they just kind of like coughed and fell over, but are never rescued or gotten out of there. People died.
Also, the number of times that there's fights in a city where buildings are leveled, and we never address what happens to the people in those buildings, because unless we're just assuming that the rapture happened and no one's in any of the buildings in like 2 or 3 city blocks.
Don't you know that all of this happens on Sundays?
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, everyone's at home. Except for when they're in the suburbs. It's Tuesday and everyone's at work.
All these fights take place at Chick-fil-A Sundays. Okay, anyway. I gotta go back to where was my notes?
Back to them.
Savage Land. Oh yeah,
Savage
we're
Land.
back at the Savage Land. Sorry. We went on a long walk on a tangent, had to walk all the way back. All right, so we're back in Savage Land. They're on a little tiny raft going to the Citadel because they're crossing the moat or whatever. And Professor...
I would call that more of like a lake, and they're in the middle of the lake. That's not a moat.
Okay.
That's way too damn big to be a moat.
That's a fortress on a tiny island in the middle of a lake.
So I thought that and here in a little bit, we'll discuss what kind of changed my mind a little bit about that. But while they're having a conversation, Professor Xavier is like, Magneto, why did you do all this stuff? Or ka-zar is like, all this bad stuff happened since you left because you created the mutates. And Magneto's like, well, I had good intentions. I had good ambitions. And Professor Xavier just kind of comes back with this exact quote. Unfortunately, Magneto, the ambitions of powerful men usually bring strife and misery to those that they would improve.
Also, I'd just like to point out that if you can have a conversation in which you can get really deep in your quoting, not a moat.
So they get attacked by the water dinosaur, and then ka-zar, it's not even a fight. He like dino whispers.
Yeah, he makes a noise and it runs off.
He does the Xena warrior princess thing.
Yeah.
And then I want to say, like, you see like a weird thing in the eyes or something, and it's just now their friend.
Yeah. So then the thing that like made me wonder if this is how big of body of water this is they kind of seem to walk or lightly swim to shore. So I was like, how deep is it? Like, it didn't seem like they needed the raft for a little while, but I don't know. I haven't done that. I can't swim either. So.
Moats would be deeper, Rod.
Okay.
I will say this about the continuity of the depth of this part of the lake.
Yeah.
Is when the plesiosaur...
If everybody can see the video of the winking happening on either side.
So the plesiosaur, as it comes out of the water, its head comes down to attack.
Yes.
When ka-zar comes back up, you see the body standing in its head down, and that's what he jumps up on, and then it comes back up. So not intentionally.
Yeah.
But they kind of accidentally perfectly topographed the area where it is shallower towards the Citadel and deeper towards the middle, and that the plesiosaur came up at the middle, and then because water is a mobile surface, they moved closer to the Citadel.
Not in America. It stays the same.
The point is, there's a really great shot of the plesiosaur's body with its head down and ka-zar just kind of jumping up on the top of it that out of context makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's a water dinosaur fight. So
they find a secret passage.
Yes, they find the secret passage. Magneto knows exactly where it is because, once again, this was his domain before. They go through the secret tunnel, but the mutates ambush them because they knew they were coming and knew about the secret passage.
Which should not be a shock to anybody, considering if they've been living in this thing for years with Magneto, or at least a few months with Magneto gone, they would have explored it.
And ka-zar and Zabu
literally just fuck off.
Yeah, they're just like, nope.
It's not just that. They literally announce, let's return and figure out a different way to attack, and then just run and jump off the balcony into the water, and then Xavier and Magneto are just sort of like,
And then we meet who is the weirdest character, which is Brainchild.
I have a question.
Please.
About Brainchild.
Yes.
I don't know the answer to this.
Okay.
And I hope either you guys do or can provide me an answer.
I will put money that Rod will not.
Brainchild is a small in stature but large in head character that is theoretically very smart and has a goatee. And he's balding. Is this a child whose brain has grown so big that his head has grown up faster, so it can have baldingness and a goatee, but yet still the frame of a body, because that's kind of the child part of it? Or is this a man who has, like MODOK put his a big head in a floaty thing?
Yeah.
This is a big head on a kid body. Like, it's a part of it, that's his delivery mechanism for his brainness. Which is it?
Rod, you go first, please.
Well, so has nothing to do with the comics, but just based on my like personal experience with friends that are like shorter and stuff, totally a grown ass man that is just, his personality is compensated for being made fun of his entire life for being small in stature. Because like I have a friend that I won't name them, but they work very prominently in sound and audio and concerts and stuff, and someone every gig makes fun of their height at some point. And it says something like, "Oh, you should move this kick drum mic to the left or whatever." And he has these one-liners, and they shut it down. I remember specifically we were setting up sound for like a Christian concert, and someone's like, "Can you move the mic over a little bit?" And he's like, "I don't slap the dick out of your mouth when you're working, so just let me do my fucking job."
Super Christian.
Yeah. But no one bothered him for the rest of the day. So anyway, so I think he's an adult that's had to deal with shit for his whole life. So that's why he's like the way he is.
Do you think he's even like superpowered in any way, or he's just got a mean streak and Mr. Sinister's like, I like that attitude?
I think his superpower is being ultra dramatic.
So I think this is very similar to the villain that comes out of Green Lantern, where it was somebody who was a little more normal, and through the mutate process that Magneto put into place, it shrunk their body, grew their head, and thus the brain is because it oversized their head, meaning they got smarter from it.
It's like a real monkey's paw.
And I don't remember the name of the character from Green Lantern, so don't ask me.
I like both of these answers. Unfortunately, I believe the correct answer is this is a Hercules scenario, and he was a super genius who another character was very upset at the existence of said super genius, so he sent 2 minions to the child super genius and fed him a dumbing down spell potion. But he didn't drink all of it, so his head stayed big and super geniusy, but his body became very childlike.
Was this in the Legendary Journeys?
This is not a Kevin Sorbo reference.
Okay.
This is a Michael Bolton reference.
Now I'm more confused. Let's move on.
Okay. Anyway,
We will explore that later after the recording is done, though.
so this is a different kind of podcast. So then Sinister arrives with Jean, kind of yells at Brainchild for being dumb.
And then we get the acknowledgement that Sinister is the master, because up until that point, we were actually speculating, and the characters were too, that Sauron was possibly the master.
Yeah, considering he has kind of like mind controlling hypnosis powers, and he's just very ominous. He hasn't said anything yet. And then Sinister reveals that using a sample from Sauron, they don't specify exactly what, but probably best we don't know, that they
You take it to the nth degree. Anytime there's something with DNA, there's DNA from stuff outside of that, Rod.
I didn't go there. Your head had to be there.
There's living organic shackles on these people.
Yep.
And then talking about retrieving DNA from people. I'm not on Rod's side.
There's a reason that one of our most popular Instagram reels is Rod screaming about the dick of Cyclops being where the tentacle was going.
Because it had teeth on it, and he was like, I need your DNA to continue this bloodline. So where does your head go, right? He has a cylindrical tentacle with teeth, and he's like, I need to extract.
Keep going, Rod. Keep going.
Anyway, so he uses a sample from Sauron to make this machine that takes away mutant powers while you're in the Savage Land, unless you're wearing the magic belt, which is just a MacGuffin. They don't explain. It's like, you're wearing this belt, you still got your powers.
Kind of the like opposite of the Slave Island necklaces, because those are the collars that stop you from having powers when you're wearing it. These are you keep your powers when wearing it.
And Sinister, because of the mind control device that he implanted in Morph's head, he it looks like he kind of senses that he's going to do something. So he locks him up and like controls him as well.
Yeah, Morph tries to fight back and it gets shot down pretty quickly.
And Sinister reveals he wants Professor Xavier to contact the X-Men and lure them to the Savage Land. He won't do it, or he says he won't.
Obviously.
So they bring Sauron in to hypnotize him. Professor Xavier resists for a little bit, and
yeah, they say he resists like no other.
Can we just point out, though, how dumb of an idea that is? They would go anywhere to save Professor X. Mm-hmm. Why not just say, hey, X-Men, I got Professor X at this location. because the trap isn't the location. The trap is they don't know that their powers don't work here. Yeah. There's no reason for them to know that their powers don't work here. Just get them there.
Yeah.
The only reason why using Professor I think still works contextually here is because the X-Men don't know if they're fighting one villain with Sinister who's also involved in the Jean kidnapping, or if it's two separate threats at the same time. That is the only reason I can think of that makes sense. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but if I had to pull the logic, that's what my guess would be.
That's actually a very logical explanation that
so it definitely means it's wrong.
100% means it's factually inaccurate, but I will grant you, I buy that.
So just based on how Xavier passes out, we kind of get an implication that it didn't work. But then we cut to the X-Mansion. The rest of the X-Men get a video message from Professor Xavier, and he's got like this dead expression.
Deadpan expression, not dead expression.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, same thing. Anyway, I use a reference. I've used this reference too many times, but it's a very Get Out demeanor of like, come to the Savage Land. The message stops, and
well, to be clear, he gives coordinates. He doesn't actually say it's the Savage Land. They don't know what the Savage Land is.
He says these coordinates, and I guess they're just embedded in the message because he doesn't physically say them, but they all reference that the message can be tracked.
They put him in with After Effects.
Yeah.
It's a subtitle. It's with the coordinates on there.
And I wrote them down because they don't mean anything. It was 75 southwest and 139 east.
Ooh, somebody...
That's just weather and time. It's like... Yeah, in Phoenix, it's this temperature at this time. That's what this was.
Someone's gonna look it up, and it's like one of the showrunners, like X's.
No, I'm pretty sure it literally is just a point in Antarctica.
Okay.
What's interesting about all this is you said something that like it might not have worked all that well on him because he was struggling much more than anyone else. I always read it as an ineffective brainwash, that he said the things but didn't actually mean them or was fighting back with it because he was so deadpan on it that like Beast immediately is like, his emotionless demeanor makes me think that he is under some sort of control.
Yeah.
Like that felt like Professor X fighting back because everyone else that's been under some sort of like mind control,
they act normal.
At the peak moment of the control, they act normal, and then when they come out of it is when they start fighting back. But I always took it as, Professor X is so strong, the best you can get out of him is an emotionless.
That's a good point.
Regurgitation of some words.
Yeah. I totally agree with you on that. It's because of how well he fought back that they're just like, well, it's going to be a shitty message at best, so let's just send it to get him to come down here anyway.
All the more reason to think just send him a postcard that says this is where Professor X is, because they were always just going to come guns wielding because this is the X-Men.
It's like, wish you were here.
We get a really cool moment too there at the end though, where the X-Men that are getting that message, it's basically all the X-Men we haven't seen yet, save for Jubilee, who's just nowhere to be found anywhere.
And
she's at the mall.
Probably.
The chili dog.
Chili fries.
I'm just gonna leave. Bye guys. But so it's like Beast and Gambit and Rogue all like, oh, what's going on with this Professor? Then as this is happening, Scott and Wolverine show back up from their fight, and there's this great like classic Scott runs in and Beast is going to Scott, and they're like, we need to talk, and it's like this cool ending stinger to that whole bit.
And to what John was saying was about, even though they knew it was a trap, I think it was Wolverine that said even if it's a trap, they still need to help, so they don't really have a choice, they gotta do it.
It'd be great if they were like, this is a trap, we're not gonna do it, we're not gonna save him, fuck him.
I don't know, it feels very trappy over here. Do we need a Professor X? It's been like 12 episodes.
We've gone at least a few weeks without a professor.
Pretty good around here.
He's a telepath, he can communicate.
We haven't had to do any danger room training while he's gone.
With the exception of Mojo.
That's not a danger room.
But at least it was themed.
I'm gonna
get fun with it.
Wasn't there danger room training in the Externally Yours episode that Gambit was messing up?
There was.
That put Scott in the hospital?
Yeah, but we like that one.
So anyway, the Blackbird descends into the mist, and that's when the to be continued happens. Except not for you. You're going to hear it now. And then we start up part 2, which is WallE's favorite part. So now he's going to start talking. They were at the Citadel. Sinister he's taking prisoners to the dungeon, like all the various X-Men that he's taken so far, and Magneto, while we wait on the rest of the X-Men to
You
arrive.
made that take so much longer than just saying the names of the 4 people.
Yes. The Blackbird lands. They find Professor Xavier's crashed jet.
Sorry, before you get to that, I hate cutting you off, but I don't hate cutting you off. Sinister reemphasizes a little bit of his plan and basically says, you're all going to live on in the army of super mutants, basically saying, I'm going to take your DNA and I'm going to make even tougher versions of you. You're all screwed, but you will have a legacy. That's a good thing, right? Everybody wants a legacy. This is our legacy, so we're fucked.
Mister Sinister is basically making an army of Deadpools from X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh, there you go.
Wow. Keep going, Rob.
And that's how we learn about eugenics as 10-year-olds.
Oh my God. The connections between X-Men and Star Trek are fierce.
Literally in the Mojo Vision episode, we talked about the fact that you have McCoy on the Star Trek parody mini thing. Thank you guys for joining us for part 1 of the reunion. We're actually going to turn this into a 2-part episode just because we had way more than what we were expecting to chat about on this one. So we went a little bit long, and instead of giving you a 2-hour podcast, we're just going to fill it over the course of 2 weeks. Thanks.